This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, good morning. This is Jeffrey Popkin, and today's topic is person-centered planning. Now, this uh, community of practice, along with the monthly webinar, are part of a grant that was from the Department of Developmental Services as well as the Kern Regional Center. The grant that we are currently working on ends at the end of this month, but it was renewed in a slightly different format for the following year. One of the changes that will come as of October is instead of having two community education seminars per month, we're going to go to one. And part of the reason behind that is a number of other service providers this year applied for the HCBS grant, and so they expanded the number of providers that are receiving grants for next year, and so that meant cutting back on some of the legacy grants that were out there as well. So hopefully the once a month will work for everyone, and in some ways it may encourage more folks to come on because you only get the one shot a month. Um, Anyways, so for today, we're going to be talking about person-centered planning. Now, the home and community-based waiver has in the regulations that sets it up for the final rule, the 10 rules that have to do with uh, the what we're talking about, specifically addresses the fact that all IPPs need to be person centered and goes into quite a bit of language in the actual regulation on what that all entails. So, what we're going to talk about today is some of the language that's in the regulations and also in person centered best practices. So, first, before we get started, oops, come on. All right. If you want continuing education credits for today, we're going 1 hour. So if you want the 1 hour credit, you must be on the whole hour to this webinar. You must identify yourself, which I see you have, and then we need to know who you are. If there's more than one person from your site on this webinar, so you got two or three people sitting in front of the computer screen or on the speakerphone, you need to identify each and every person that's on there in order for them to receive credit. Uh, and then when this is all over, you need to send to Irene at Bakersfield ARC a brief 3 points that you learned today. Yeah, it just could be, the Valerie just put her email address in the chat. Uh, what did you learn today? So it could be like, that person-centered planning uh, is encompasses the individual, um, their family when it's relevant, the community, other professionals, the regional center, et cetera. So that could be one, and then you could come up with two other points that you got out of today's session. When you do send that in, we ask that you send it in within the next 30 days so that we can keep these things current. And then once we receive that and it's reviewed, we'll send you out your 1 unit of credit. And that credit is good for continuing education for both Kern Regional Center and for Department of Social Services community care licensing. So it it's helpful if you do need continuing education. All right. This week ta-da, is National Direct Support Professionals Week. So September 7th through the 13th is a week where we acknowledge the work that persons who are supporting the individuals that we do, to that we their what goes on in their lives. So it's an important week, and we want to make sure that the direct support professionals are the heart of our mission. Their compassion, dedication, and tireless efforts ensure that people with developmental disabilities thrive. And we owe them the deepest gratitude, not just for this week, but every single day of the year. And there are organizations, the National Association of Direct Support Providers and others, who are lobbying up in Sacramento and in Washington, D.C. to make the work that you do even more professional, both in terms of the recognition of the quality of what you do, and also financially, that this profession tends to be paid at a lesser rate than other professions, and it needs to be a living wage for the people who work in this, and there needs to be adequate benefits. So, again, National Direct Support Professionals Week is important to getting the word out of the work that you all do. Okay, today's presentation is an overview. And I need to really stress that. This community of practice is 1 hour general overview of person-centered and is not intended to be a training tool on implementing of person-centered plans. The presenter, I am not a certified trainer in person-centered planning. I have worked with it and sort of know the basics, but I've not taken the coursework necessary to be officially certified. If you are interested in a comprehensive program on person-centered planning, the Kern Regional Center, Shannon Luke is their training officer, provides an ongoing person-centered planning training throughout the year. And I believe they have one other staff person who's learning that. John Noriega, who had been doing it for a long time, has moved out of the area, so I don't know if he's still involved with it as well. But there are persons here locally, and it's free of charge. So that's a good way of going. There are other sources out there. The National Center on Advancing Person-Centered Practices and Systems is a good source, and they have, I think, about an 8-page document called Person-Centered Planning, Choosing the Approach That Works for Persons, for the person. And if you go to their website, it's right there, and it's a good document for basic information. The Learning Community for Person-Centered Practices is sort of the benchmark for information on person-centered planning. Michael Small, Smull, is one of the originators of this particular method of implementing person-centered planning, and this is the site that he works out of. And there's a lot of good information at the Learning Community for Persons with Centered Practices. They have a lot of videos, they have worksheets, they have a number of other things that are very helpful for those of you who'd like to do it. Another resource is Helen Sanderson Associates, and they have, if you go to their website, there's a number of things. There's some PowerPoint presentations, there's some other things. They're doing basically what I'm doing for Kern at a number of Southern California regional centers, and they're actually an international group that's doing a lot of work in this area, and very good work, and they offer some person-centered planning training. Both the learning community and Helen Sanderson's do charge for their comprehensive classes. The regional center, unless it's changed, it's free. So that may be a good starting point if you are interested in getting further training on person-centered planning. And again, today is an overview. One of the big things that is a difference with person-centered planning over traditional planning is that it's strength-based. It is looking at the individual strengths, their interests and hopes, fostering positive and rewarding outlook. So we want to try to look at what somebody does right, what they enjoy, what makes them happy, how can we build on their ability to access and utilize the community and to be more self-sufficient, to be more self-determined, using who they are, starting with them. I'm a professional social worker, and the first day that I went into social work studies, the teacher, professor, said, so in social work, you start with where the client's at. Okay, so you start with what they came in with, what's going on with them, and then you move forward. And that's, and then when I first started learning about person-centered planning, I said, this is very similar to what I learned in Social Work 101. So it's the same concept, just presented differently. And when you look at person-centered planning, there is 4 or 5 different ways of doing it. There's discovery. There's 2 or 3 others, and it is just a matter of technique. But the basic idea is a strength-based approach to providing services. It's collaborative and holistic. And by that means that the person-centered planning involves the family, if the family is involved. And again, that's up to the individual as to whether they want their family involved, unless there's a conservatorship or something like where it's required. But normally the individual just decides on the level of their family's involvement. I personally encourage it when it's positive for the individual. I think it's part of the support for that person as we develop community. Friends, if they have any friends that they would like to involve, both if their friends are also individuals who are clients or persons served by the system, or could be hopefully friends in the community. So if Mary attends the church on Sunday morning and has become good friends with the Mr. and Mrs. Jones, if she wants to invite Mr. and Mrs. Jones to her meeting, that's her meeting. She's more than welcome to do that. Service providers. So if you're providing services for Mary and Mary would like you to be at her meeting to discuss what services you've provided in the last year, and then once Mary agrees, if she agrees, to utilize you for the next year, how we're going to go about trying to build a strength-based approach to her services for the following year. The Kern Regional Center Service Coordinator attends the meeting. They're there both to facilitate and also they're the record keeper, Department of Developmental Services, a state agency, there was a law passed a few years ago saying that and this comes out of HCBS rules, that there should be a standard IPP format, individual program plan format, for all uh, regional centers. So for every individual 3 years of age and older who is not in prevention services, there is a format that gets used and filled out at that meeting, and the coordinator is the one that does that. If there are other professionals involved and they want to attend the meeting, they're encouraged to attend the meeting, and it is beneficial for that individual to have others there. Uh, um, and we really do encourage that if it's possible. And if there's other people in the community that are, and again, at the individual's request at their meeting, they can be involved too. And we want to make sure that we're supporting the individual, that it's inclusive. We're talking about how they can better utilize where they live, where they work, if they go to day programming, if they're um, going out into the community, all of that gets added to their plan, so that we can make sure that it's person centered. And it's holistic. So that means that we've looked at everything that is involved with that person's life, including medical, social, emotional. So we're not just talking about, that they're going to go to a program from 9 to 3, but we're talking about their whole life. And we want to empowerment and autonomy. The person-centered plan encourages self-determination, so that the person is the deciding factor, that they determine what goes on in their life, and autonomy to make decisions. We get up every morning and we basically decide what we're going to do that day, and we go off to our jobs. We do other things, but we have choices throughout the day. And for many of the people historically that we've worked with, there weren't a whole lot of choices. There was a routine. If you lived in residential care, when you got up in the morning, you did this, this, this. You got on the bus, you got to the program. The program then had you in this program from 9 to 2 or 12, and then another one from 12 to 3, and you didn't really get to make many decisions about that. And that's part of the change. We want to make sure that people can have meaningful outcomes and a good quality of life. Interesting enough, if you go back and look, we're now saying, okay, well, person-centered planning, that's a new concept. But no, it's not. The first time that I became aware of this personally was I went to a conference, and Michael Small was one of the presenters, and that conference was in 1984. So this idea of developing plans that are strength-based, person-centered, dates back a number of years. And so when you look at the Lanterman Act, which is a California law that sets up regional centers, what you see is that in 1992, it said they changed the law and added that person-centered planning should be part of every individual program plan. Before that time, it wasn't there. There was an attempt to individualize the person's plan, but it really didn't. It wasn't necessarily based on strengths. When I first started in the developmental services system in 1977, the plan was called a problem-oriented record. It wasn't even an IPP. And that was entirely based off of identifying what problems were in that person's life and how do you either fix it, maintain where they are now so they don't regress, and to prevent backsliding. So that was what you did. It wasn't about necessarily moving forward as we do today. Then in 2014, when the home and community-based waiver put the final rules into place, they said that the individual planning has to be person centered. So again, I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation that if you go back and look at the actual regulations, the federal regulations, the Federal Code of Regulations, you'll see that it talks quite a bit about the need to have a person-centered plan. And this is interesting because Medicaid waiver, which is where home and community-based waiver is located, still says that in order to be on waiver, you have to have at least 2 deficits and need to have services in the community based off of these deficits, and that's how you qualify for waiver. So the waiver itself still uses a slightly deficit model, but the planning process and what goes down in everyone's individual service document is supposed to be of a positive nature. Person-centered planning focuses on the individual's interests, capacities, and visions. So we want to try to find out what the person likes and what they're interested in, and then looking at how we can go from there. A number of years ago, when this concept first came out, I was talking with another professional in this field who was sort of old school and wasn't really buying into the whole concept of looking at strengths and hopes and dreams. And the analogy he used was, well, what if you go into the meeting and here you have someone who has, let's say, a moderate level of intellectual disability, and they tell you they want to be an astronaut. So do you write the plan so that person's going to be an astronaut? Because that's not really a realistic plan for that individual. But that's what the person's telling you. And it's, so he was sort of, saying, I don't think this really makes sense. So we sat down, we talked about it for a while. I said, okay, so if he's saying he wants to be an astronaut, it means he really likes stuff related to space and things. Maybe we could find him some volunteer work or some work, maybe doing something at at the airport. One of the companies that maintains the hangars, or in the terminal, or something else, something that's related to flying and space, and something that might interest him based off of his desire to be an astronaut. So yes, indeed, this individual was correct that in all likelihood this person would never become an astronaut. That doesn't mean we have to kill that dream. We can look at other ways of helping that individual to find things that he enjoys, that are meaningful to him or to her, and move them forward to a more fulfilling, meaningful life. This method is different from traditional system-driven plans, an emphasis on the person's unique needs and aspirations. Um, Years ago, I would tell people basically, we've decided that Baker Soleil RC is the best program for you, NAPD is the best program for you, social vocational is the best program for you, and this is where you're going to go. And the program will then set up your plan and tell you what you're going to do from once the bus gets you there at 8:45 or till 11, and then lunch, and then this, and then that, and then home. And so here you go. It's all set up for you. And there wasn't a lot of talking to the individual about what they really wanted. The other thing that happened in plans of the past is oftentimes when we really focused on deficits, for me, oftentimes I was uncomfortable in some of these meetings, and if I was uncomfortable, I could just imagine what it was like for the individual. I mean, walking into a meeting and having staff from the group home talking about, well, Johnny doesn't fully wipe himself when he has a bowel movement, so staff have to go in and check him out before he leaves the restroom and make sure that they clean him up a little bit so that he. And first of all, they're talking about Johnny in third person, like he wasn't even in the meeting. And second of all, I don't think I'd want to have a group of people sitting around a table talking about my bowel habits. That's private and personal. And if the person has issues related to that, that can be done through maybe an individual service plan on how we're going to work towards having him being more independent in terms of self-care. And so the goals then become independence of self-care rather than, well, Johnny needs assistance with wiping. That doesn't necessarily want to be part of that person-centered plan. Okay, here's a chart. I actually got this from AI. So how about the pros and cons of the different systems, and this popped up. So I'm giving it credit where credit's due. Now the focus of the meeting, it's on strengths, interests, and aspirations. So we want to look at the traditional method, the one that I originally grew up in and had it sort of change gears to become part of the new one, was needs, deficits, and limitations. So we would talk about what the client couldn't do and what we were going to do to try to get to make things better for that individual. That was a different approach to what we're doing now. Hang on one second here.
Okay, I think that sounds good. And
Dickens back in, he's barking out there. So I'm sorry about that. So decision making led by the individual. So we want them to be a decision maker, and sometimes that's not as easy as we think. So as someone that we work with, it tends to be less verbal, or there happens to be more challenges in their to getting them to speak up. And especially in a meeting where they're sitting around the table with all these people, and if they've been in meetings for a number of years, so that they're an adult client, they may have been through the old system where people talked about what they didn't do and their hygiene and other things that could be a bit embarrassing. So we want to really encourage people to do that. And sometimes people will say to me, well, what about Sally, who is nonverbal. How do we know what she would want to do? How does she lead the meeting? Well, if you're working with this individual, you can kind of tell, hopefully, over time, uh, by their body language, they're smiling, whether they tense up, whether they're relaxed, what people like and what they don't like. There's an old adage about that there are two types of behavior. Either you're trying to get something or you're trying to get away from something. So, what is it that this person wants? And that can really help you. The approach is holistic, meaning it's a whole person. So we want to look at all of the person, not just the day program person, or not just the residential person. We want to look at their health, their emotional state, their physical, their use of the community, how well they're learning how to handle their own finances. A number of areas all get into this. Now, under the old model, it was, I sometimes use the analogy for those of you who like on Amazon and stuff, watch old TV from the 50s and 60s. There used to be a show called Father Knows Best. And that was kind of what we did in the old days. We were, as the social worker, the counselor, later on it became service coordinator. We would know what was best, and we'd make the decisions for someone. And sometimes it would, if there were more medical issues involved, maybe the regional center doctor, or sometimes the psychologist would be at the meeting, and they would make decisions. And now we're goal oriented, future focused, and vision driven. We want to, okay, where do we want to go? This person is 24, and she is currently, she left the school system 2 years ago. She's currently at a program that's site based during the day and goes out into the community on occasion. And she's sharing with us that she would like to be to work at some point and to be able to go out on her own in the community as well. So, what do we do? How do we work on a plan to move her in that direction? The old plan would have said, okay, Sally needs a place to be during the day. She's living at home, and her parents both work, and so to solve that problem, we'll put her at a day program, and we would solve that was solve the immediate need. Right, got her someplace to be. A support network. We try to develop supports for that person. Um, Many of the individuals that we work with, it's changing hopefully some, but any adult that they're with during the day is either another individual who's being served by the system or is someone who's paid to be with them. So if somebody who's in a residential facility, then it's it's a residential staff getting on the bus driver, the getting to the program, the bus driver home, the staff. Living at home, it's, well, the family is obviously part of the support, but then getting on the bus, day program, bus, home. So we want to expand that so that there's more support for that person, more places they can go, more places they can do. So, Georgia decides that she or has always liked um, crochet. Her mom crocheted, and as a youngster, she learned it and got involved with it. So, what about finding a group of individuals who do that and having her become part of that organization or part of that Parks and Recreation program or just an informal group that meets at someone's house? And so she can be part of a network and support. Um, so in the past, we would oftentimes foster dependency. When we're making all the decisions, when we decide what's going on, when we just direct that person's day and don't give them really any independence to make decisions, then they become very dependent on us, and that's what we want to get away from. And engagement, high personal relevance and motivation. We want the person to feel like they're being listened to, that what they have to say is important, and that we're going to try our best to do what they're requesting. And in the past, it's oftentimes we impose things on people, and if they had any ideas or thoughts, they were considered to be irrelevant. Kind of like, yeah, you'd like to be an astronaut. Well, that's totally irrelevant. It's never going to happen. Let's get realistic. You can go to this day program, and they'll put together a program of hygiene and maybe some social rec and some basic reading skills, and that'll be your day. Outcomes. We want meaningful life aligning with the person's values. So we want their life to be meaningful. You and I strive all the time for meaning in our lives. And sometimes when we get upset or anxious, one of the things that we oftentimes do is we feel, wait a minute, is what I'm doing really what I want to do? Am I happy with what I'm doing? Is this really the direction I want to go? And how can I make my life more meaningful? That's a challenge for all of us. And it continues to be even into your later life. Something that I deal with at times. And in the past, it was functional outcomes based on the system's priorities. So when somebody went to a particular day program, they weren't asked, okay, so what do you want to do during the day while you're here? What happened was they were told, okay, you're going to go into group B, and group B does, watches the movie from 9 to 10. From 10 to 11, they work on personal hygiene skills. From 11:30 to 12, you have lunch. Then from 12, and the whole day was decided for the person. So if you went to this program, here's your schedule. If you went to this program, here's your schedule, etc. So we, as the system started to change and we started looking at, wait a minute, these are supposed to be based off of what the individual wants, we started looking at the traditional model as almost being like the analogy of the tail wagging the dog. So, the service provider was telling the individual what they were going to be doing rather than the individual telling the service provider what they wanted and asking that they provide that service consistent with that individual's hopes and dreams. So hopefully this chart was helpful. Oops. What's going on here? So what is PCP? It focuses on the individual's interests, strengths, and what they do well. It shifts away from solely addressing needs and limitations. Discussed this already. The process involves creating a vision for the future and identifying steps to work towards that vision. It's not about fitting into the system, not about going to program A for this hour and this hour. It's about creating a plan that truly reflects the person. The The planning group, oftentimes called the circle of support, includes those who know the person best and are committed to exploring possibilities together. So, as their service provider, as their DSP that's working with that person, as family, as others, as service coordinators, as people who know this individual get together around the table, we're supposed to be working with that, facilitating that individual, helping that individual and helping them articulate, share, clarify what they would like to do and say, and what have you. And we want to make sure we get away from using jargon. We in this field have all kinds of abbreviations and nomenclature that we use, and a lot of it's not relevant to. I always say, if I'm talking with someone who's doesn't work in developmental disabilities, would they understand what I'm saying? And if it's no, then it's not right. So when we start doing all the alphabet soup of IPP, PCP, self-determination, SD, this, that, we want to try to stay away from that as much as possible. There is a certain amount of that we have to say in the meeting, because that's how the funding is set up. Regional center vendors programs under certain names and what have you. But when we're talking with the individual, we want to make sure that they really fully understand what that service or what that support is, or how we can develop something that will move in the direction that they're interested in. The plan considers how to develop relationships, community connections, and individual tailored supports. Focus on the individual. The person is at the center of the planning process. Again, this is just review. Inclusion. Everyone has a contribution to make. So we want to make sure that everybody sitting around that table speaks up and everybody is involved. Realistic goals. The plan looks beyond the present to envision what life could be in the future. It acknowledges that some goals may take years to achieve. So again, the individual who wanted to be in aerospace, and how do we get that person to a goal that meets what they would like to achieve and accomplish. Choice and decision making, the person making decisions about their life. They choose who participates in their plan. So again, the individual decides who's going to be at that planning session. Community participation, the plan explores ways to engage in community life. So we want to make sure that we're getting that person out and about in the community. And for those of you who get my newsletter, this last newsletter, again, was on community inclusion. And one of the examples that I used was many day programs and residential providers that I've gone out and spoke with in the past have shared with me, yes, indeed, we go out and we use the community. We take the group once a week and we go to the Valley Plaza and we walk around, and then maybe we'll go to the food court and have lunch, and then go bowling once in a while. The individuals in my home really like bowling, and we'll go to the movie. And so we do a lot of community stuff. Well, but when we talk about, is that going out into the community, or is that becoming part of the community? And the difference being is if the only people that they're with or basically interacting with while they're out at the Valley Plaza is basically other people in that group that they went out with, and the staff person, and maybe the one exception being the clerk when they order their lunch, but there really is no interaction. That's not community. That's being in the community, not being part of the community. And what we want to encourage is the latter, being part of the community. So, if we're going out into the community and going to Valley Plaza, why are we going there? What's the meaning of that visit? Are we going to go to the Gap to look for that a pair of jeans that you would like to pick out that you think would go be nice for you? Are we going to Foot Locker to talk to the manager about what it would take to be employed at that particular location, and what kind of an application process, what skill level, etc., so that it's something that would be beneficial to that person's community skills? Are we interacting with others as we're in the mall? So again, you need to relook at what community participation means in the particular program that you're providing. One of the things that I would like to see more of is the development of personal histories, sharing past events in the person's life, backgrounds, critical events, and relationships. What happens is people oftentimes come to the IPP meeting. Okay, we've got this format that DDS now requires. It's person centered. We're going to fill this thing out, and then the IPP will sort of come out of that and what have. But we really haven't gone back and looked at what's worked, what hasn't worked, what is important to that person, what some of their experiences have been, what makes that person tick. A lot of our individuals have been involved in situations which may be associated with some trauma, and have they really had help processing that, and how has that affected their life, and other things that are involved. Then we want to describe the quality of life, exploring community participation, present rights, respect, and competency. So what's going on with that person? Identify supports that they currently have, and that is in the new planning process, and creating an action plan. So that, okay, so there's more. And when we talk about holistic, it's not just about filling in the boxes on the new person-centered planning form, because the filling in boxes and person-centered aren't the same thing. You don't necessarily do one or the other. The PCP, the person-centered plan, is essentially for empowering the individual with IDD to exercise control over their own lives. It allows the individual to decide what they want to achieve, how they want to live, and what supports will meet their needs. And again, all of these are in the home and community-based waiver final rules. So if you look at the 10 rules, the first 5 being for all providers, and the 6 through 9 being for residential, and then the 10th being accessibility for all providers, they really talk about this, about deciding what they want to achieve, how they want to live, and what supports will meet their needs. And that's the goal of providing services and supports. Remember that the PCP is about the individual making choices, learning effective problem solving, and taking responsibility for their lives. Remember that the process is, oops, remember that this process is about empowering individuals to shape their own lives based on strengths, preferences, lifestyles, and culture. So we also want to make sure that we respect cultural variables. So if somebody comes from a unique culture, that we respect that. We ask the person about that. We incorporate that into their plan if they so request it, and we make sure that we're respectful of the traditions and understand that person as a whole person. Okay, we've gone through this before. Let's see. Okay, preferred futures. When consumers describe where and with whom they want to live, whom they want to socialize with, how they would like to spend their time, what jobs they want to have, other aspects of their daily life. So these are things that we'd like to facilitate to help that individual come forth with these ideas. And for some individuals, when we first start talking to them, they'll say, I don't know, or you, oh, it's all right. You just kind of put together a plan for me and that'll be fine. No, we want to take a step back and really work with that individual and say, well, okay, so where do you live now? And do you like where you live? And, oh, do you have a roommate? Is that working out for you? Do you like your roommate, or would you like to do something different? Would you like to maybe live in an apartment and have somebody come in and help you with, your independence, etc. So we want to really look at the preferred futures for that individual. Okay, we're getting close on time. Let's see. Okay, so remember that the person-centered planning isn't just about paperwork. It's about empowering individuals to shape their own lives based on their unique aspirations and strengths. Not a single meeting, but a series of interactions with the individual's family, current regional center service coordinator, and DSP staff. So it's not just, okay, we have this meeting, here's person-centered plan, see you next year. This is an ongoing process that we want to continue to work with them. Information is provided to the individual in a culturally sensitive format or languages they understand to facilitate their decision making. So if you have people in your program or in group home or family, so that individual who are non-English speaking, we want to make sure that we provide them with materials that in the languages that they understand and support their decision making. Okay, and then we'll end with this one. Ed is a young man who loves music. Okay, so when we're going into the planning process, and we know that Ed has a strong passion for playing the keyboard, which is central to his personal interests and growth. So when in Ed's room, at your group home or at his family home or his apartment or wherever Ed lives, he has a keyboard and he spends quite a bit of time on that keyboard and he's learning, music. When he uses some of his personal funds, his SSI, to buy sheet music so that he can continue to do that. Okay, so how do we use that to engage him in the community? Connect Ed with a local music club or an inclusive band fosters social interaction and shared music experience. So maybe we can find, a band that he can play with, or like I said, a music club, or maybe the Parks and Recreation Department has a advanced keyboard class that he could get involved with and be one of the people in that. Okay, whoops. This is wrong. It should be mentorship and skill development. It got cut off there. Maybe we could set up weekly music sessions with a mentor to help Ed refine his keyboard skills and build confidence. So maybe looking at creative use of vendorization, getting maybe a social recreation program or skill development or something. I'm not part of the vendor team that makes the decisions on where this goes, but this is something that could be looked into as to how you can help him to further develop his skills. I mean, being involved with a community group that's going to help him, and then you maybe a tutor, mentor that can do some of that, and then vocational opportunities. So this is something that Ed is really enjoys, and he's developing skills, and he's good at it. Maybe we can get him locally. There are a couple places that do that have like sound stages, so get him involved with sound production or music therapy, opening up a career opportunity. There's also the film school here locally, where maybe he could get in there and maybe get involved with musical scores for some of the films that they're making and do that. So this is an example of how you take a skill that someone has or something that he enjoys and is learning to do it, and how we can enhance that and use that as a way to get him involved with the community, to further develop that skill, and maybe even to make it into an opportunity for employment. So that's the presentation for today. Are there any questions or comments that anybody would like to make? Just open up your mic. Okay, I appreciate your time. There will be another presentation next week on the 17th. I'm working on that right now, and we will get the topic out the first part of next week, and look forward to having you on webinars in the future. And again, starting next month, we're going to a once a month webinar format. Take care and have a good rest of the day.
Thank you, Jeff.
Bye bye.